Konnichiwa Minasama. This video is going to be very different because I am going to be completely vulnerable with you guys. I am going to share my controversial opinions on anime with all of you. And the idea for this video is inspired by one of my favorite YouTube channels, Tried and Refused Productions. So thank you, Anmol Janbal. Now let's get started with number one, the opinion on Silent Voice. Now, I don't think Silent Voice is a masterpiece like you all make it out to be. Like, hear me out on this. Does it have a very good take on mental health? Of course, absolutely. I give it a 10 on 10 for the representation. But it has very poor character writing. Like, at least for me, Shoya Ishida as a protagonist is terrible, okay? Like, in the beginning of the movie, you see Shoya Ishida trying to commit suicide, and you are just like, oh, why is he trying to do that? And then we are taken into a flashback where you find out that Shoya Ishida used to bully this girl, his classmate Nishimiya, who was deaf, and it was brutal, okay? This guy used to pluck out her hearing aids and she used to start bleeding from the ear, and he doesn't stop there. He does it like 7 to 8 times until Nishimiya's mother has to interfere, and she gets Nishimiya transferred so that Nishimiya can escape the bullying. And Shoya doesn't even regret it when his teacher calls him out and after he is ostracized by his classmates. So he is just like, oh, now because of the loneliness, I need to commit suicide. I can't even look at my friends' faces anymore. And only much later does he realize that, oh, okay, I shouldn't have bullied Nishimiya. And the apology he gives to Nishimiya after meeting her is just not genuine enough for me. Guys, I am so sorry for saying that, because if Silent Voice had a plotline where Shoya Ishida tries his best to connect with Nishimiya, like send her letters or something, and then give a heartfelt apology to her, and she is just like, bro, no, you tormented me, I don't think you deserve forgiveness, and then Shoya Ishida would just be like, oh, okay, I am truly irredeemable now, so I really think I deserve to die. And then his friends just bring him back being like, listen, this is not the end of the world and everything. Then Silent Voice would have been a 10 out of 10. Okay, but no, we had to go with this. And to make matters worse, we have this bitch who is Shoya Ishida's friend, and she has a one-sided crush on him, and she is just bullying Nishimiya for no reason. Like, she doesn't even realize that what she did to Nishimiya in middle school and now is kind of wrong. And the ounce of character development we are supposed to get from this girl is that she learned sign language at the end of the movie, and she just uses it to abuse Nishimiya again by calling her an idiot in sign language. Like, what is wrong with you, woman? And then Nishimiya falling for Shoya Ishida just does not make sense to me. Like, woman, what is wrong with you? Shoya Ishida is not Damon Salvatore, or he's not Gojo Satoru, or he is not even Mahito for him to be so hot to get away with the atrocities he committed. Like, move on. This guy shouldn't be with you. Okay, even though his redemption is possible at best, there is no way you can believe it, okay? Nishimiya and Shoya do not make sense together. I don't care even if Shoya saved Nishimiya's life and, kind of suffered a head concussion or whatever in the process. These two are just weird. No, I don't buy it. I'm sorry, guys. My unpopular opinion. You can troll me in the comments. I will wholeheartedly welcome it. Now, let's move on to the next controversial opinion, which is also a romance anime. I hate Kimi ni Todoke. Before you guys grab your pitchforks at me, okay? I like the first season of Kimi ni Todoke. I think it showed a very realistic depiction of people suffering with social anxiety and how rumors can isolate a girl in school, okay? I was rooting for Sawako to have a good school life, but Kimi ni Todoke just lost me in the second season, okay? Because Sawako overthinks a lot, and we as the viewer have to go through episodes together filled with monologues of her overthinking, and it is very, very irritating because by the end, when Sawako and Kazehaya get together, you feel nothing because throughout the season, Sawako has unintentionally hurt Kazehaya, and I feel like Kazehaya just did not deserve that for the amount of care and affection he shows to Sawako. So it's just very, very disappointing how Kimi no Todoke took a nosedive in second season for me. But what gets more disappointing is that in the third season, Kimi no Todoke just butchers Kazehaya's character, okay? Now, Kazehaya gives one of the dumbest reasons I've ever heard in shoujo anime for avoiding his girlfriend Sawako. So Sawako is just getting worried here and she is like overthinking, like, okay, what did I do for him to second guess our relationship and for him to avoid me like this? Is he having second thoughts or whatever? And Kazehaya is just like, listen, Sawako, every time I look at you, I can't stop thinking about kissing you, and I don't think I'll be able to control myself anymore, and I might end up kissing you. What? Kazehaya, this does not make sense. Who are you? Why are you like this? This is easily so stupid. I mean, I get that teenagers are stupid, okay? But this is dumb on another level. Like, my guy, you can just talk it out with her. Since when did you have a problem with that? And obviously, Sawako would like that because you just kissed in the beginning of the season. Like, this just doesn't make sense to me. It is complete character assassination. And it doesn't help the fact that Sawako, for the life of her, cannot communicate, okay? And I get that it is excusable in the first season, even when it is clearly the screenwriter's fault. Like, her friends Chizuru and Ayame tell her that, hey, Sawako, tell us clearly, do you think we are your friends or not? And Sawako obviously thinks that these two are her friends, but she isn't sure if they are as close to her, as close as they are with each other. And she is like, no, but, and gives an unnecessarily long pause after but for Chizuru and Ayame to misunderstand her. What are you doing, screenwriters? I get you need to milk more drama out of this, but like, please, allow poor Sawako to survive. It's not going to kill you to reduce your anime to 12 episodes. But before I blow a fuse on Kimi no Todoke, let's move on to the next controversial opinion, okay? I will discuss Kimi no Todoke in detail if I ever decide to make a video on it. Now, let's talk to the next controversial opinion, and I know some of you are going to get triggered over here because we are talking about Monster. Guys, I don't think Johann Liebert is a scary villain, and I don't think he deserves the title of the greatest villain ever made, because I think Homelander takes the cake here. He is scarier than Johann Liebert. Like, sure, Homelander is not as manipulative as Johann Liebert, and he does not work in the shadows or whatever, but the sheer power Homelander possesses and the sheer way he can control you through fear makes him scarier than Johann Liebert. Okay, don't get me wrong. I find Johann Liebert very entertaining. I even get chills, but those moments are very few and far in between. Like one time when he just kills a person in front of Tenma, and the other time when he sets the library on fire and manipulates the millionaire's son. And the ending obviously gave me chills when he just suddenly gets up and then reveals the twist. But Homelander is scarier, okay? And there are other manga antagonists who are scarier than Johann Liebert. Like you see Onandera Punpun, or even the mother from the manga Blood on Tracks, because these feel like real people and this feels like it can actually happen to you. But Johann Liebert just feels too fictional for me because he is too manipulative, too cold, too calculated, and just works from the shadows all the time and too good at setting up bonds. Now, the next controversial opinion is also about Monsters, okay? I think Monsters should have been at least 50 episodes long instead of 74 episodes, because we could have used less screen time of this bitch Tenma's ex-fiance, okay? I do not like it anytime she appears on the screen. She should have just disposed of Tenma and then ran away, never to be seen again. I wouldn't have had a problem with that, but no, we had to get her unconvincing redemption arc. And then, to make matters worse, I really hated the detective. Like, I know Johann Liebert is manipulative, okay? I know he is an expert at using people as pawns because he is the one setting up the board. You don't have to show me the detective's point of view. If you started Monsters from the detective's point of view and then revealed the twist that, okay, Tenma is not the villain here, he is actually the victim and Johann Liebert exists, then maybe I would have been more invested with the detective's character and maybe Monsters having 74 episodes is justified. But no, you guys already know that Johann exists, so why are we spending time on the detective thinking that, oh no, Johann does not exist, he is Tenma's alternate persona? Just, no, it just makes me hate the detective even more, okay? I just think he deserves to be killed off too. Now, hate me in the comments all you want. I will wholeheartedly welcome it. But let's move on to the next controversial opinion, which is on One Piece. Now, a lot of you have complaints that, oh, One Piece has pacing issues, guys. I think the pacing of One Piece is perfect, okay? You wanna know why? There's a completely logical explanation for this. It's because I have endured Ekta Kapoor's torture, which is Nagin, and Indian daily soaps Ye Rishta Kya Kehlata Hai. After seeing this, you guys will forget the definition of slow pacing and you will feel that One Piece is really, really fast paced. Even the filler episodes of One Piece will look like absolute masterpieces to you. So the next controversial opinion is about Makima from Chainsaw Man. Now, for those of you who say that, hey, Makima looks very innocent, she gives the girl next door vibes, and she is very scary for putting Denji through absolute chaos and taking everything away from him and destroying everything near and dear to him. I'm sorry, I cannot agree with you, because the moment I laid eyes on Makima, I know that she is the control devil and she can manipulate you and she has other intentions with you even before I read the manga, which is much later after the anime, so that I can get caught up on the Reze arc. But Makima is not that threatening of a villain, at least according to me. And her wrecking Denji also didn't seem very impactful because Denji moves on from it like it is nothing. And he just takes Makima's name so casually at times, and he is just like chasing around other girls or something. And it makes perfect sense for Denji's character, but it also lessens the impact Makima had on destroying him completely. And so, by that regard, I think the War Devil is a more impactful villain than Makima, and Makima sure as hell did not deserve the popularity or did not deserve to become a cult classic, at least according to me. With that, let's just move on to another controversial opinion, which might be for the minority of you consuming Omegaverse, okay? I cannot vibe with Omegaverse. I just don't think it is for me. Because, for those of you who don't know, Omegaverse consists of Omegas who, irrespective of their gender, can give birth. And Omegaverse has a lot of male pregnancies. Now, if you guys are showing us male pregnancies, then what is the difference between a normal romance and an Omegaverse? Like, what's the difference between a guy and a girl if the guy can get pregnant? Like, you guys will argue that, okay, equality is a thing, and yes, it is, but if we start to read this, then we might start misgendering the guys as girls, and I think that is going to be a really big problem. So my point is, let guys be guys in the Omegaverse, at least from what I have consumed, because the only Omegaverse anime I watched is Tadaima Okairi, and I think if the character Masaki was replaced by Masaki from Bleach, then nothing in the story would change, okay? If anything, Tadaima Okairi reminds me a lot about Shinchan. So, I don't know. I think Omega verse just needs to be done a little bit better. But on the other hand, I really love yaoi as a genre. It is my favorite genre. So, on that note, let's move on to the next controversial opinion. And I can see you guys gathering up an army because it is about Naruto, okay? The first season of Naruto is trash. Guys, I am so sorry for saying this, okay? It really breaks my heart because I love Naruto Shippuden, but I think Naruto is an irritating protagonist, at least in the first season, because Naruto absolutely does nothing. Like, most of the heavy lifting in the first season is carried out by Sasuke and Kakashi. Okay, the best Naruto did was to give a pep talk to Inari, and Inari goes and motivates the villagers, and then the villagers build the Great Naruto Bridge. I don't think Naruto deserved the Great Naruto Bridge, and it took them forever to defeat the big bad in the first season. So, like, what are we doing here? I just didn't like the first season of Naruto, but the rest of Naruto really vibed well with me. And with that, let's move on to the next controversial opinion. Guys, I think that Demon Slayer deserved to win the best continuing series in this Crunchyroll Awards. Now, before you guys think I am insane, hear me out, okay? Demon Slayer actually did something different with the Hashira training arc. You can see Tanjiro just letting loose and training and also goofing off with the Hashiras and everything. So it is so refreshing to see that. And I think that's why Demon Slayer Hashira training arc just deserves to win because it feels more like a slice of life and it actually gives you a warm, cozy hug instead of keeping you at the edge of your seat. Okay, the next controversial opinion, and I can see you guys grabbing your pitchforks and actually ordering death threats at me because I think Solo Leveling deserved to win Anime of the Year. Now, before you guys think that I'm a psychopath, hear me out, okay? I have a very, very logical explanation for this, okay? Do I love Apothecary Diaries? Absolutely. Do I love Freerun? I will watch it 100 times. Do I love Dandadan? Yes. But if you have a family that is stricter than the Indian censor board and you genuinely want them to enjoy anime and the only thing they have known is this brain rot Pocket FM stories, then Solo Leveling is the perfect anime to put on with your family and enjoy it, okay? And that's why Solo Leveling has a special place in my mind as a core memory for enjoying anime with my family. So, on that regard, I think Solo Leveling does deserve the Anime of the Year award. And Sunjin Woo does have a possible character development, at least in the first season, with aura farming and stuff. So, that kind of degrades in the second season, but still, Solo Leveling is kind of good. It's not great, but at least it can get you and your family to enjoy anime together without your family members just looking at their phones from time to time. And with that, we wrap up the spree of controversial opinions. Now, please tell me in the comments below what you think of this. Do you agree with them? Do you not agree with them? Do you have opinions of your own? I am looking forward to hearing it, and I will welcome any sort of comments you guys throw at me because it means a lot to me. So, with that, thank you so much for making it till here. It is honestly a miracle. I can't appreciate you enough. Arigatou gozaimashita. Kiyotsuke aishiteru.